Hi, friends. We are excited to be here with you today.
Mm.
Um, Ruth, and you wanna bring us in today?
Oh, I do. Welcome, everyone. It's so lovely to be here, whether you're live or listening later. I am still in Chicago for the moment. We'll be starting a trip to Morocco tomorrow after lots of holiday and family activities over the last week. Hope everyone is doing well. Holidays are, especially in the US, are kind of traditional holidays that are being celebrated. I don't, lots going on, lots of different things that can be felt. And I think that's actually like something I feel like Yoli and I have been having some conversations about. It was actually what kind of inspired a little bit of our conversation today about the fourth domain and our approach at DEI Cipher, and the fourth domain of messaging and integration. So we talk about decolonization and ethics, we talk about restoration, we talk about creativity, and we kind of like, while all these things, we're not these are very spherical. We're not deep, it's a very, very hub-like process for us versus something that's deeply linear or deeply hierarchical.
Hmm.
But messaging and integration is kind of this very specific space of a lot of
Hmm.
tools being put into practice and kind of being put into
Yeah.
reality in this way that's really fascinating. And I kind of want to, yeah, Yoli, I mean, I know we had a conversation last week and we've been messaging about this as well. I kind of, so I'd love to sort of hear where you are right now with the process of messaging and integration, and what we want to share today, especially as we are gearing up for our December 9th workshop, and our workshop series in general. And so please, would love to hear more. How are you? How is everything?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, thank you. Well, thanks, friends who are going to watch this video with us live and those that are going to watch this on a replay. Hi, this is a DEI Cipher, and we are a support tool for you and your organization as you navigate the integration, learning and integration of DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion principles, and then put them into practice, right? We've got individual, we've got collective as a community. We've got
Yeah.
policies, like changing, policies in the institution, changing the whole institutional culture and organizational culture with a
Mhm.
particular focus on leadership
Yeah.
development. Dan, I heard you say decentralized leadership. So, yeah, our methods are nonlinear and are really about action and embodiment. And in operating an organization and how you speak to your community, whether that's through your newsletter, your own YouTube channels and Substacks and blogs, and of course your social media, because this is the world that we live in, that you have to have a social media footprint, and a pretty large one and
Mhm.
functioning one at that.
Yeah.
Especially in our creative industries, entrepreneurship, small batch gin factories, just all the artisans working in these industries. So, our workshop spaces, as we've created them, are going to be a chance to go into these four principles that we've named. Ruth Ann shared them with you. And we wanted to speak, yes, we were inspired by the moment to speak to messaging and integration. And I think, as you asked me a question a minute back, I think that this is a special play space, like your marketing and the messaging, utilizing your platform, and whether I'm really not so much advocating for specific political agendas, more about how do you tell the story of your own organization, business, nonprofit, whatever your individual thing, queen of the universe, like whatever's your thing, how are you sharing your story, your mission, your vision, your values? How are you embodying transformative work? If we set out to integrate diversity, equity, inclusion principles and practices in our organizations, that means systems change. Mm-hmm. And along with system change is also leadership model may need to have a transformative journey of its own, and then how we bring well-being and rest into the space is a regenerative model of being. And then what is the story that we're telling? What's our creative journey? Mm-hmm. How can we connect our own mission, vision, and values to something, a message like this? And how can it also be fun? I think fun is really important and playful, And so what, got us on this topic over the last couple of weeks was Thanksgiving, and this nexus. So nonlinear things that are designed in spirals and nonlinear means there's far more intersections and mingling of ideas and processes and tools, So when we're thinking about this nexus of Thanksgiving 2022, right? And you're coming, where are we in time and space? We're coming out of the pandemic, I think, ish, weird space, but it's just full go now. And it's a volatile economic time, but there's still lots of money to be made, and people are making a lot of money. Okay. And it's real facts. Okay. And then, is this like cultural ritual of gathering the family and the stresses and joys that come along with that, sometimes an inordinate amount of stresses for folks, less joy and lots of stress, lots of family things, trauma and family dynamics and all things. Okay, right? So we're still in this big moment, and then we've got this movement towards the centering of, well, what is the origin of this? Because as a culture, what we're doing right now as an American culture is we're starting to ask more questions. Like, well, why are we doing this the way that? Do we need to keep doing this in the way that we're doing it? What is the origin of this? And yeah, it hurts when the origin of many American cultural practices is centered in hate towards somebody else and exploitation of bodies. Just saying, like some Resma Minikim type language, so things we saw and conversations we were involved in these last couple of weeks was part of the inspiration of what we wanted to bring to the conversation today, because is there a way that we can use our platforms to amplify the voices of those we have not heard, who have been silenced, who have been systemically silenced? Yes, indeed we can. There's a way to do this. And there's a way to do this that doesn't perpetuate harm. Except since May of 2020, gosh, I've seen other people do like decks, on Instagram and stuff, of just the performative messaging and the co-opting. Like, when is the right moment for you to relate your service, insert into a current event that is, drastic and like people have died? I saw that the other day too. I'm gonna have to remember real quick what it was if I can pull it out of my brain. But I saw something where I was like, ooh, that is borderline, like disastrous situation, my company and its services. And it was like an almost I told you so. It wasn't clicking. I said, ooh, that was borderline. I'm gonna have to try to remember. Okay. So just to the point that definitely I saw some things, and I had some interesting conversations that I hope were impactful and helpful for folks to, I wanna frame this, right? So somebody said this to me in an email. I hesitate to say anything because I'm worried I won't say it right and I don't want to do more harm. But isn't that the problem? Not talking about it, right? And I really felt these words. I really took this in, and I said, "Wow, that sums up, I think, one of the big stucks that folks have coming out of first and second round of DEI education, or the consultants came in, we had workshops, we did the things, nothing seems to really be changing. Um, shouldn't we be using these platforms to say something? But how do I say it in a way that's not perpetuating harm?"
Well, and to your
Yeah.
point too, Yoli, I think, you mentioned a couple things there that I think, there's, something that can be kind of, especially powerful and almost like there can almost be this almost like, oh, I just need to relieve this pressure. So I want to, I want to, where is the intention coming from? And there can be almost this moment of like, hey, I just want to make sure people know that my company does, is this way, or is this frame, or that we don't want to cause harm. We don't want to do this or that. And yes, that's yes, of course. And, things, but is it still framed in a really white-centered lens? Is this that's where things get so tricky, is like, all of a sudden it's like, wait, where was this, where did this intention come from? Where is this still feeling pretty centered around kind of a very like a white sort of lens?
Yeah.
Yoli, we were talking about the conversation around like, who are you speaking for? Where did you get that language? Where have you sourced these things? Is this really the right space? And I would love, I think those are really, we were just talking through all of these questions that I think that need to,
Yeah.
need to get asked. And I also want to say, when we talk about this, like the amount of the cultural norms and cultural pressures, it again, nobody's here to kind of, we're not interested in a bunch of shaming and blaming here. It's really just more about like trying to figure out, well, hold on a sec, let's rework this. Let's look at, like, let's take some time and back up a little bit to make sure that if we are going to look at lifting up different voices, look at lifting up voices that have been really suppressed, how do we do this in a way that doesn't cause harm?
Well, one of the things that we're going to have to let go of is the fear of causing harm. What's more realistic is accepting you are going to cause harm. It's pretty human to inflict harm onto others. Can you learn how to take responsibility and apologize? And what is most important about an apology is the truth telling, and the change in behavior, right? Yes, there's the acknowledgement, and then here's what I'm going to change. And I've seen some like textbook apology, in the right way of like, I'm sorry and I'm going to do better. Like, well, name something you're going to do better.
Yeah.
Put the words to it, because that means don't issue the apology before you've actually digested the transgression.
Another form of this,
so
this like release of pressure that if when it's like, hold on, where, like this really, like apologies can be, where is the intent, like where is this locus of like, where's the apology coming from? Is it just to relieve pressure and to re-say like, I'm not bad, like, oh,
right.
hold on,
right? So
Yeah.
let's also speak to the shame and blame. You named that
Yeah.
as well, because this the shame, blame, guilt, and whatever we were just talking about. These are the things that that immediately come up, and we don't have
Uh,
any tools to manage them. So we need a little toolkit, a little practice at identifying these cyclic feelings and experiences, and here's the tools, here's how we create a space to process these deeper feelings, not just stuff them inside, not just ignore them. And so, we're talking about the acceptance around harm, and that's a bit about failing forward,
yeah.
right? In that failure is the guarantee, and we're going to learn a lot from that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then are these feelings, shame, the blame, the guilt, kind of things. And as a culture, we haven't been taught how to process these strong feelings much. So um, those feelings are going to arise, and they don't have to stop you in your tracks from learning, progressing, and transforming. And we see a lot of that like, I just can't get into the guilt and shame. Well, guess what? The guilt and the shame is resonating if you are carrying any traumas in your body, whatever is your trauma history. When no matter where your origin of culture and race and religion and identities, your nexus of identities, whatever it may be, you're going to go through these transformative learning processes. This stuff's going to get stirred up in some way for you. Many people just stop right there. But I want to
Yes.
acknowledge not enough tools have been shared that are about the embodied transformation for people to process. So we're kind of stuck in this little loop-de-loop, you
Yep.
know? And so, like, even just kind of bring you back to Thanksgiving, well, what are the questions that we're asking right now? What are we, you know, as a society, even around Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
What are we celebrating? What is there a way that we could do this that would, shine a light on the things that have been pushed into the shadows like
Mhm.
this? I saw a beautiful retweet from somebody. I gotta like find this one. I gotta think about where I saw it. It was so good, but it was about um, like, hey, every year I need to redo this tweet, and it's that like Black folks were never into the Thanksgiving that's about pilgrims, and like all the pilgrimness, so like just facts. So we have these
Yeah.
subcultures, with it. So like, whose white dream is Thanksgiving?
I know.
Seriously, because for so many Americans, it's when we gather and when we generate gratitude and when we feast, and it was like never this narrative. I said, damn, if that's not true. So like this, I wanted to share some like easy kind of starter questions, general broad
Yeah.
stroke questions that we can ask. And some of these were I thought about these last week, during this Thanksgiving time and having some conversations with folks. So it's like, you want to do this post, you want to make this post, and let's double check this one. So like, are posts like this something you regularly do?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why now?
Yeah.
And when I think about what are we getting at there, we're looking at like, is this performative messaging?
Yeah.
This is our gut check. How performative is this? Is this aligned with mission, vision, and values? Whose voice is okay? Let me show the rest of them. Okay, who is the audience that will receive this message? Is this something that they are accustomed to hearing from your business?
Yeah.
right? So let's just pause for a quick second. When businesses, nonprofits is even like a little bit different because it's like it's social service aligned, right? It's about the people somehow if it's nonprofit. So nonprofit messaging and like social justice messaging and those
Yeah.
kind of things,
Well,
normal fare. So
no,
I
for
think I
sure.
think we are really zeroing in here on for profit.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
and um, and is this something your business does regularly? Or do you feel a sense of pressure to also get out there with the theme of the moment? This was something that happened a lot summer of 2020.
Yeah.
So from May of 2020 and George Floyd's murder and Breonna Taylor's murder, and subsequently what followed there, protest in the streets, Black Liberation Movement. Wow, we saw a lot of
Yeah.
performative things.
Yeah.
And maybe there hasn't been as large an event since then, but I've still seen it with other events. I've seen it with Ukraine. I've seen it with the women in Iran. I've seen it with, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's the wrong thing.
Right.
But there is a spectrum of done according to the principles of performative and being more aligned with your own mission, vision, values, your own habit in your marketing, in your messaging, and an expectation. Like is your is your base accustomed to hearing from you like this?
Yeah. Well, and Yoli, something else I would pull into the mix there too, and this was something that we do talk about in our workshops, and we do talk about here is like, marketing and messaging. People immediately, and this happens, as someone who's been involved in this industry in various ways for a long time, it is people are continually surprised when I ask the question like, hey, when was the last time you had a conversation with your internal team about your communications and how you communicate? So this, so like, to add on to these questions that Yoli's that are so important, it's also like, when was the last time you had any sort of internal collaborative communal discussion with the people in your organization about these kinds of things, about things like Thanksgiving and about storylines, about messaging,
Mm-hmm.
and to your
Mm-hmm.
point, it doesn't mean that, yes, like to Yoli's point, there's going to be the failing forward. I mean, that's sort of the jokes, not the joke, but like the reality is, there's going to be failure here. Like our relationship to failure is a whole nother component, but are there some ways to just we're really trying to thematically say, hey, let's back up a few more steps. Let's take some reverse engineering here. Let's ask some questions. Let's talk to some people. Let's talk to our team. Let's talk to folks, are there other like-minded businesses that maybe have been in a similar, space? This is where, when we talk about why communal creativity and communal solution finding is so important, who are you asking? Especially if you're going to be speaking on behalf or wanting to advocate on behalf, for the groups that you're wanting, maybe wanting to start to integrate into your messaging. There's just like, but there tends to be a lot of like, coming back to performative, there's a lot of like, oh, I'm going to look at this end result. I want this great looking post. I want a quippy tagline. I want to make sure people know XYZ. And the reality is like, whoa, like, what other steps could we be taking before that? What questions can be asked? Doesn't mean the failure isn't going to happen. That's not the point. But the point is like, where is the intention coming from? Who's involved?
Well, and let's also name engagement. Okay, if you're gonna send out some messaging that's DEI principle aligned, that's
Yeah,
telling your story, it's about engagement. What are the discussions that are going to happen in your comment box?
Yeah.
Who is going to email you at your company and just be like, I saw this and this is what I think about this. Like,
Yeah.
yes, it's actually about engagement.
Yeah.
So I have a little prompt here. Is there a more long-term way you could engage your audience to think critically about their intersectional privilege rather than a single post?
Mm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I even want to just even like do a quick backstitch on something you said before I read that, and that is, we want to help you and your teams do this. We want to come in as your consultants and support you in how you knit and stitch together the collaborative space to create your innovative, effective, and pertinent of the moment marketing. Because here's the other piece of it. Should we not be speaking to the moment? Isn't that what these rapid response social media spaces are about? How we're interacting with each other and as a company. And, so what would it be to generate this from the transformative process you take as an organization?
Mm.
That's what I hear you speaking to. And I said,
Yeah.
look, the reason people are doing this is because they don't know how to do it. Yeah. And we would very much like to show you the way of how you do this through rest and
Yes.
through unlocking creativity and through like integrated wellness, not this sprinkle of, yoga classes on Friday at 10 a.m. kind of thing. Now everybody's half remote. So just saying.
Yeah.
But okay, back to this third principle.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Of inspiring critical thinking.
Yeah.
In which is what we're role modeling actually with all of you. These are the kind of conversations that we could be having and equipping ourselves internally as well as with our customer base, with the people that we interact with in our footprint.
Yeah.
People who just think our brands are dope and so they follow us, and they want to see the story and they want to see what y'all are up to.
Yeah.
So what are those other ways that you can inspire your audience to think critically and speak to the long-term journey? Well, again, I think I come back around to storytelling because you yourselves are committed accountability to a long-term journey of transformation. It's not going to happen overnight, but if you keep at it, it will change. It absolutely will change. Trust can grow. Healing can happen. Really
And
can.
I want to echo that for a hot sec here too, because I do think for those of you, and we have seen this ourselves, for those of you who have perhaps had a few failings forward already here in DEI initiatives within a company, or maybe even a post, like maybe, maybe that singular post that you're talking about, some of what we're also, some of what we're talking about, is that, like Yoli mentioned this so eloquently about like, there's a lot of emotion around this space. There's a lot of fear I'm going to screw it up again, though. And the reality, this is very much this deep, super binary lens, which then of course puts people into this space of like, I just don't want to do anything. Coming back to this original question, well, now no one's saying anything about anything. And, so I guess I paused there just to acknowledge that, we know there are a lot, like this is, man, it like to get kind of to lift back up is can feel like a lot, and it also is so important, so crucial, so rejuvenative. There's so much potential, and the knowledge that you've had from the past experiences is actually super crucial to innovate and iterate into this space moving forward when we talk about transformational work, especially specifically with DEI initiatives in your company. So anyways, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Yoli, but I just wanted to name kind of extra echo that, like, of just like, yeah, like it's, it's okay if you've already even had a few of those moments of like, oh, I really didn't do that right or whatever.
Yeah. Or like you said,
Oh my
you
gosh.
made one of those posts. You
Yeah.
sent out one of those newsletters.
I
You
mean,
committed the faux pas. I've
sure,
done it.
sure. Like, don't, we're not like I mean, and you mentioned 2020 summer, man, that was like, Yoli and I were both like, we're both here in Chicago. The amount of passion and anger and sadness, and it was I mean, it was
Palpable.
oh,
Very intense.
so like, and again, this, I think back to some things that I felt really, conversations and things that I had that were really transformative. And I also had some things that, like, yeah, I look back on like, oh man, I just didn't know what else to do, at that moment,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
but I needed to do
Uh-huh.
something. And that's, so anyways, yeah, I
Yeah,
just wanted to
yes,
name all
yes.
those pieces that this isn't about like this is the process. This is what helps prepare us to actually then work into and dream into really amazing creative solutions, like right timing, right messaging on your time, right timing on your messaging, right
Yeah.
messaging on your timing, all that.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So I have one more little point
Mm.
here, and I'm going to paraphrase this one. So particularly for Thanksgiving, right? Let's say you wanted to make a post about something about Indigenous people of North America, something about like championing the voice of those people of like is anybody else, seeing the misalignment of this whole thing? And the way to muck that one up a bit, no other way to put it really,
Yeah.
the way to muck that up would be to speak for Indigenous people if you are not an Indigenous person,
Yeah.
right? So what we want to do is center Indigenous voice. So that little gut check question there, are you amplifying Indigenous voice? Is there a way to share an authentic message that centers, in this case, Indigenous voice?
Yeah.
And
Mm.
how can you amplify? How can you share? How some wellness businesses I know, they like to direct towards places to give
Mhm.
in this season, Giving Tuesday, tomorrow. So, how do we amplify? How do we connect? How do we amplify? I think I said this already. This is another set of questions. But to what you said a little bit earlier, the problem is that like that culture of dominated by white cultural characteristics, it's programmed to always center itself. So we have to unlearn that singular cultural programming and learn how to present, amplify, and center the voice of Indigenous people. Now, as somebody who's been involved in a few projects here and there on such things, there's obstacles. I mean,
Whew.
I'll just, I want to speak to this. This is outside of our own work. I think a little bit outside the scope of what we offer professionally in our consulting, but I don't know, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But
Yeah.
what gets in the way is capitalism, right? Because when you then are going to center places that aren't as celebrity or well known or footprinted themselves, then they don't get the traction of larger, more well known personalities. So I've been a part of like oh, let's center Indigenous voice, let's amplify Indigenous voice in yoga and wellness industry, and then they don't even really know how to market your program because or you're offering your retreat, whatever it is, because they don't have an infrastructure for it. The customer base isn't looking for this. They as an organization want to center these voices. This is happening all over this paradigm I'm describing right now. It's happening across so many industries and settings
Yeah.
and locations and things, like really and truly, where then it's like, oh, well, you didn't draw enough people in, so no, we
Yeah.
can't do this, right? So, whoa, where is when we're trying things out? Like, perfect example of failing forward. We're going to have to try things out. Have I experienced harm along the way in this? Yes, as you know, a BIPOC person, yes. And I also have to be willing to be on the adventure
Mm,
unless it is too harmful, in
yeah.
the end. So, yeah, just sort of a little peekaboo window into, we start these things and then it can be challenging to make them financially viable in the way that you are accustomed to.
Well, and I mean, coming back to, again, just white-centered characteristics of capitalism, of rapid fire financial results as the definition of success.
Yep.
We could go on and on. There's many other things we can talk about, which we absolutely can at other times, but like, yeah, I do, and I mean, I think I think it would be difficult for us to not really fold in some capitalism somewhere here in our in the work, because reality is like, this is it can be such a massive, harmful, weaponizing justification to stay in the performative space, stay in tokenism, stay in, oh, I
Exactly.
got some pictures of some BIPOC models for my yoga studio website. Feels kind of, I mean, it borderline feels kind of, well, no, it isn't borderline, feels safe because it's surface, right? It means that, you're like, okay, I did my thing, I did the thing. So, that's what, I mean, that's a whole nother conversation about how capitalism and white-centered culture bolster this weaponizing process. It's complicated, and again, we're here to actually help unpack and kind of talk through. This is where, why there needs to be so much restoration, so much space, understanding. This is why the domains and the way that we've chosen to approach DEI work is very, very intentional. And there are probably folks who might even be listening to this or on now that are like, what do you mean? Like, I don't understand. You mean I have to restore to feel, to come more like alive? Yes, actually, yes. Like, because that is going to bolster more creative solutions. It's going to invite more honest conversation and collaboration and authentic messaging, authentic opportunity that is decentralized in its form. So yeah, like these things, man, it's a lot here. And that's also why, even the way we've designed our workshops is very
Yeah.
specific. We want you to really start to see a real, we are so, we are so committed to experiential learning, to embodied learning. We want you to be part of that process with us. We know and know, we know, like, how important these tools are to get folks into a new space of transformation, on this individual and collective level. Like, like this is the sauce. This is the space.
That is the bite. So just what you described, Ruthann, that's what we're doing in our workshops.
Yeah.
4 hours, 1 hour roughly devoted to each of our domains, decolonization. Yep, we need a review and defining the problem and
Yeah.
mapping how it shows up in our spaces.
Yeah.
And then diving into rest and drinking from the well of regeneration
Yeah.
from that space, going into some creative processing tools and movement,
Mm.
and from there, um, bringing in this piece we've been speaking to today about messaging integration, whether that's a language of next steps, whether that's a language of, okay, here's who I'm going to go back and talk to, here's what I'm going to think on, um, here's what I would like to dream into, imagining the possibilities. And poof, 4 hours is going to go like that.
I
Plus,
know.
we're a lot of fun to hang out with.
Oh
We're a
yeah.
lot of fun. It's going to be online. Our
Yeah.
first workshop is going to be live and direct from Essaouira, Morocco, on the Atlantic coast. We're actually really excited to do some events, DEI Cypher retreats here in Morocco in
Yeah.
2024. And so I've been hanging out with you this evening from Marrakesh, Morocco. Ruth Ann's going to join me in a couple of days, and we're going to incubate and practice what we preach.
Yeah.
And hopefully see you on December 9th. You can check out our website, www.deicipher, DEI Cypher, at just deicipher.com. Yeah. But you can find us on all the apps.
All the ads. All the
All the
ads.
apps.
So real.
So thank you
Yeah.
all for
Thank
joining
y'all.
us. Thank you, Ruth Ann.
Thank
We're
you.
going to catch you all next week.
Yeah.
2 more before the year end, and then we'll see where we go.
Yeah.
Let us know that you've learned something from
Yeah.
this video. Give us a holler or a shout out.